Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
To send a message that if you're going to do business in Canada and you know your product is harmful, you need to warn people about it, you need to act responsibly.
Canada's highest court rules BC can sue opioid makers and sellers on behalf of other governments for harms caused by their products. Plus,
we have been preparing for this date for the past 4 years.
Change of command. The Surrey Police Service officially takes over from the RCMP in BC's second largest city after a bitter political fight.
No one involved in this very public debate did it for fun.
And
community makes survival work.
We know our neighbors.
Banding together ahead of the next storm. We go to a small BC island to see how people support each other when the trees fall down and the power goes out.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We start with a major court ruling in a years-long fight amid our national drug crisis. The Supreme Court of Canada says BC can sue opioid providers on behalf of other governments. As Katie DeRosa explains, the Premier says it is one step closer to holding them responsible for harms caused by their products.
More than 6 years after then Attorney General David Eby first announced that BC would sue opioid providers for the harms their products cause, the Supreme Court of Canada has given a green light for a nationwide lawsuit.
It's not going to be a full answer for anyone who's lost a loved one, but it is some recognition, some forced recognition on the part of these companies that they are not without consequence when they make these decisions.
Canada's top court ruled it's constitutional for the province to go after opioid manufacturers, distributors, and retailers on behalf of other provinces, territories, and Ottawa. The companies argued BC was overstepping its jurisdiction and not respecting territorial limits. But in a 6-1 decision, a majority of Supreme Court justices rejected that argument, saying the opioid crisis knows no borders, and so a national response is appropriate. The next step is for the BC Supreme Court to certify the case as a class action lawsuit.
There is an open, ask for those defendants to come to the table with us and the other governments at the table to come and try to resolve this as quickly as possible.
The province alleges the defendants contributed to Canada's opioid epidemic by falsely marketing their products as being less addictive. In 2022, BC announced it had reached a $150 million settlement with Purdue Canada, the maker of OxyContin. It was the largest settlement of a government health claim in Canadian history. Former Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart has lost 2 loved ones to the opioid crisis, including 1 family member in the last week.
There's no victory here yet, and if there is a victory, what will come is money from presumably the companies to the provinces, to whoever who joins the class action suit. So what's done with that money is equally as important as if they secure it.
In a statement, Loblaw, which owns 2 of the companies named in the suit, Sanus Health and Shoppers Drug Mart, says, "We are disappointed in the outcome as this decision almost guarantees a much longer, more expensive, complex, and inefficient process." It argues it was improperly included in the action and will try to have the lawsuits resolved as quickly as possible. A win for the BC government could mean millions of dollars in damages, which the Premier says could pay for addiction treatment. Provinces can opt out of the class action lawsuit if they want, but the BC government says none have so far. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
A Fraser Valley man wants a new cancer treatment to be paid for publicly, calling it a matter of life and death. This comes after the agency that represents public health plans ended talks with a company that makes the drug. More now from the CBC's Isaac Panay.
Jim Larson says despite a wide array of treatments, his cancer keeps coming back.
I'm a 10-year survivor of prostate cancer that has metastasized into my bones.
Now, his doctor is suggesting Pluvicto, a cutting-edge prostate cancer treatment that kills cancer cells with an injection of a radioactive substance, a treatment that comes at a high cost. Pharmaceutical company Novartis says a 6-dose treatment has a $162,000 price tag.
No, yeah, you can afford it, sell your house, sell your cars, and live in a shoebox. which people can't do that in real life.
Every year, about 3,500 British Columbians are diagnosed with prostate cancer, and in 2021 alone, it killed about 700 people. Some experts say Pluvicto could be a promising solution.
We've seen great results, but again, it's patient to patient is different. It's all about the intervention time.
Canada's drug agency recommends provincial public health plans cover Pluvicto. Active cancer treatments are funded by BC Cancer for all MSP patients. But BC Cancer has no compassionate supply of the treatment. In a statement, it says patients can get treatment if they pay for it privately or through third-party insurance. The Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance, which negotiates drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, says Pluvicto is too costly to purchase. It says after lengthy talks with Novartis, it failed to agree on a price for the treatment, but it's willing to reopen negotiations. Meanwhile, Novartis says it's disappointed the talks closed without an agreement. But the cost of Pluvicto is comparable to chemotherapy. Back in Chilliwack, Larson is calling for the two sides to urgently get back to the table.
If this doesn't happen within the next few months, we're going to start to lose people. People are going to die.
He's calling on the federal government to step in and help fund the treatment for hundreds of eligible patients.
My life is worth living because I have so many friends, I have so much support, and I have a very good lifestyle. And I just want to keep on living that lifestyle.
Isaac Punne, CBC News, Chilliwack.
Amid the Canada Post workers' strike, deliveries are stuck for many businesses. So one well-known BC shoe designer is taking matters into his own hands, doing his own deliveries in Vancouver.
This is John Fluvog.
Hi.
Hi. I've got a gift for you.
John Fluvog says seeing his shoes being worn by people around the city brings a smile to his face. He'll be delivering more packages on the Lower Mainland and Sunshine Coast.
This postal strike has been a lot of fun for smaller retailers trying to figure out how to alternative ways of getting things around and getting people's packages to them. And yeah, it's challenging.
The strike is now 2 weeks old. The Union for Striking Workers says the Crown Corporation has been laying off employees in the meantime. Winter in BC is forecast to be wetter and colder this year, and many communities are already cleaning up after several big storms that took down trees, flooded homes, and knocked out power. On Thetis Island, south of Nanaimo, residents have banded together to help one another because, as Claire Palmer shows us, help is not always close by.
Downed power lines, trees in the streets, all too common this winter in coastal communities in BC. On smaller islands like Thetis, just across the water from Ladysmith on Vancouver Island, people are already preparing for longer winter outages.
They're just part of life here. Yeah, I mean, as I say, they each have their difficulties for the people, but we really try, the community tries to understand what's going on and deal with it, The whole thing is communication.
Residents on Thetis say that it's important to be prepared with things like non-perishables and water in case of power outages. But your preparations won't mean anything unless you get to know your neighbors and start to build a community.
Community makes survival work. Community is how we exist as human beings.
Islanders say when the electricity goes out, everyone springs into action because they know help isn't always around the corner.
We have no mutual aid here. We do on paper, but if the ferry isn't running or it's hours before we can get any assistance from the Cowichan Valley fire halls. So we are it. This is it.
The community center here is a beacon. It's equipped with a generator, a kitchen, and a beverage station, the place to be when a storm rolls through.
The hall has been designed for this. We've had gazillion volunteers building it. It's all because we understand this.
For many, they'd rather be on Thetis because of the people and their survival skills.
When we have the big earthquake, I think that I would very much prefer to be in this community because we know how to deal with stuff. We don't go to the grocery store every day. We tend to stock up. We know our neighbors.
You are seen and you are cared about, and we all want that. So that is, in and of itself, life-saving. Save someone's life. Say hello.
That's why Thetis Islanders say you want to meet your neighbors. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Thetis.
Karis Hogg is here with our look at the weather. Hello, as we head into the weekend. What do we get?
Well, it was a pretty dry day for much of the province today. Taking a look here at the satellite and radar over the past 6 hours, you can see there was some precipitation in the central interior, falling as snow and falling as rain on the eastern edge of Vancouver Island. But we're expecting a series of low pressure systems to bring a lot more snow to the central interior, a lot more rain to the central coast. I'll have more details on that later in the show. But right now, just taking a quick peek at tonight and early tomorrow for Metro Vancouver. Showery, rainy overnight, and a wet day tomorrow. Dan?
Okay, thanks, Karis. A plea deal in a major cross-border case is shedding new light on human smugglers operating out of Metro Vancouver. As Jason Proctor explains, the smugglers moved dozens of people across BC's border into Washington state.
This is a case that's raised eyebrows on both sides of the border, with 2 separate busts last year in the span of only a few months involving dozens of people found hiding in freight trains originating here in BC and winding up across the border in Washington state, where, according to court documents, US-based associates of Canadian smuggling operators pick up undocumented migrants and then help them on their way to destinations across the United States. So even as President-elect Donald Trump has been accusing Canada of lazy border security, a US man accused of meeting those migrants on the US side of the border entered a guilty plea to 1 count of conspiring to transport them and to help them remain illegally in the United States. Jesus Ortiz Plata admitted to transporting at least 25 people in 7 separate smuggling incidents. According to court documents, he was actually identified after his phone number cropped up in a couple of human smuggling cases. So people who were being smuggled told border agents the number belonged to this guy known as Choi. And a number of people who were found hidden on, the freight trains last year claimed they were told Choi would take care of them on the US side of the border. U.S. authorities then mounted surveillance on Ortiz Plata by connecting him to this number as he drove from his home in Oregon to the Washington side of the border, moving groups of people between hotels and residences. He was arrested in May with 3 undocumented migrants in his car. 2 of them were brothers from Honduras who told customs agents they paid $4,000 each to cross the border from Canada to Portland. They claimed they were then taken to the train station and told to hide in the voids in freight trains until they got to a stop where someone would meet them. The third came from India, and he said he flew to Toronto where someone from his village put him in touch with a fixer who was supposed to arrange for him to cross the border. He claimed he was dropped off at the border, not far from here again, and directed to walk across to a waiting vehicle. According to court records, Ortiz Plata will be sentenced in February. His plea agreement says his sentence will not be more than 18 months. Jason Proctor, CBC News, Vancouver.
You may want to check your cucumbers if you have any in your fridge. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says it's because of a potential salmonella contamination. It says all sizes of sun-fed produce, whole, fresh American cucumbers sold between October 12th and November 26th have been recalled. This after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration associated that product with reported salmonella cases. Health Canada says symptoms usually start 6 to 72 hours after eating them and can range from fever and chills to more severe infections in young children and older people. It is a changing of the guard years in the making. After the break, we will take you to Surrey, where a new police force is officially in charge. Stick around.
I'm Stephen Quinn, and I love living here in Vancouver, BC. It's a city with world-renowned beauty, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. In our new daily podcast, This is Vancouver, we're exploring the diverse range of issues and stories in this city, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as told by the people who live it every day. Don't miss This is Vancouver, available wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you soon.
At the stroke of midnight, the city of Surrey officially transitioned from the RCMP to the Surrey Police Service, the biggest policing transition in Canadian history, and a long, divisive, expensive journey. As Michelle Gassoub reports, the full transfer of power will still take years to finish.
A changing of the guard in Surrey.
Today's remarks entail the beginning of a new era of policing in Surrey, as Surrey Police Service officially becomes the city's new police service.
As the SPS officially takes command, RCMP are now in a supporting role.
I want to assure the residents that the collective police response will be coordinated.
It's a change 6 years in the making and the biggest policing transition in Canadian history. But a takeover like this doesn't happen overnight. SPS will start by policing Surrey's Whalley and Newton neighbourhoods and will add South Surrey in the new year. While 475 officers have been hired, the force says it needs 785 to be fully staffed. It's been a long, public, and divisive battle to get here. Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke was elected in 2022 on a platform of retaining the RCMP.
It's no secret I was opposed to this transition, and I did a lot to try and keep the RCMP in Surrey. I know some people, including many here today, just wanted me to drop it.
Officials say residents shouldn't feel any impact. There will be no interruption to ongoing investigations, and integrated teams like IHIT will continue to support the new force. Some say the process has weakened their confidence.
Maybe gaining back some of the trust. I feel like the public is feeling a little more like, oh, if we can't trust the police, then who can we trust?
A cost analysis produced for the province suggests with equal staffing, the SPS would cost $30 million more per year than the RCMP, additional spending that many say they support.
I'm happy with because RCMP are controlled by Ottawa.
Police in Surrey are responsible for major gang investigations and cases with international implications, like ongoing allegations of extortion in the Indian diaspora. There are warnings there could still be choppy waters ahead.
There have been roadblocks, it's been very rocky, and let's be prepared for that. For the next year and a half, people are upset, but it should not cloud their professional judgment.
The transition won't be complete until 2027. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Surrey.
The BC hiker found alive after surviving more than 5 weeks in the frigid backcountry is now out of hospital in Fort Nelson. Sam Bonastic was reported missing after he didn't return home on October 17th from a 10-day camping trip. He says he was chased by a wolf, which is how he got lost in Redfern Keeley Park. This story is giving new hope for another northern family. As Tom Popock reports, there are now growing calls to reopen the search for a man that disappeared near Chetwynd.
Jim Barnes was reported missing October 18th in these same northern forests that turned from autumn chill to a deep freezing winter cold. Friends and family have never given up hope.
Unfortunately, we are in the same spot as when all of this happened. A lot of unanswered questions.
Barnes was last seen near Ground Birch Forest Service Road southeast of Chetwynd. The 29-year-old paramedic's plan was to gather firewood and shoot grouse with his golden retriever Murphy. RCMP found his 2004 Chevy pickup, phone, keys, bag, and firearms still inside. Search and rescue teams from across the region fanned out looking for any signs of Jim or Murphy. None were found. The search called off on November 1st. Jahazia Trudeau has now started a petition to reopen the search, reflecting concerns from the community.
Especially after Sam was located, it's given me more hope, and it's inspired this urgent action to get brown people out searching for him.
Some 1,500 people have signed the online call for help. SAR officials say since this is a police missing persons case, any decision to reopen the search is up to the RCMP. Until then...
Yeah, I have no idea what the future holds or what it's supposed to look like, unfortunately.
Those left behind live with uncertainty. Tom Popock, CBC News, Kelowna.
This is the day that was 2,200 meters above sea level on Mount Revelstoke. Snowing up high and down low as well. Karis Hogg has your BC-wide weather forecast coming right up. With just 1 week until her massive Eras tour arrives at BC Place, signs of Taylor Swift's imminent arrival are popping up all over the city and on the water. Aquabus Ferries has unveiled some Swift-inspired decorations to go along with its extended hours after the concert.
We were going to be open until 1 a.m. from the Plaza of Nations to be able to help get everybody from the concert. And then we thought for a little bit of extra fun, we'd decorate the boats and have them ready for the Swifties.
Now, for the next little while, the ferry provider has outfitted its fleet in seaworthy friendship bracelets. They have become the unofficial symbol of Swift's tour. So that is just one piece of the so-called lore surrounding these shows. 2 years in, demand appears to still be sky high, with fans raring to attend. Why is that? Here to help us explain the Eras tour and its long-lasting appeal is the CBC's Michelle Gomez. She is an admitted Swiftie, and we've come to her for some answers. Seems fair to say this is not simply another concert, is it?
No, this is not your grandmother's Taylor Swift tour. The last time she toured was 2018, and since then she's released 5 albums. So the Eras tour, what makes it different is it's really a compilation of all her music, this untoured music and her music before. It's also a very impressive performance. She goes for 3.5 hours, and it's a very impressive production, very well done. Within the first 8 months, it became the highest grossing tour of all time, just within the first 8 months. And she's broken attendance records at every stadium she's played at. She caused an actual earthquake in Seattle. So it's a big deal. Yeah, it's just the fact that the last stop of this tour is in Vancouver, it's a big deal.
Now, we saw on the Aquabus ferries and all amongst the fans and the Swifties, the friendship bracelets. What role do they play in the Swiftie experience?
Yeah, the friendship bracelets are a big part of the experience. You know, her brand is all about kindness and compassion and sharing and especially empowering women. And that's exactly what the friendship bracelets are, an extension of that. It's, you know, you meet up with your friends before the concert and other fans and you make them. And then at the shows themselves, you're sharing them, you're trading them, giving them away. And it's really just about sharing the experience with other fans and making new friends and making memories. And then you have a memento that you get to take home with you.
It's probably, a lot of people would go for a hat or a T-shirt, but bracelets are a new thing. That, when you talk about the passion that fans have, that's going to translate into some big, or we assume, some big dollars. I mean, this is the highest grossing tour of all time. What are we saying about what might be the dollar impact here in Vancouver?
Absolutely. So 160 fans are expected to come in for this concert.
160,000?
Yes.
Wow.
That's according to Destination Vancouver. And so the estimated economic impact of this is going to be around $157 million. So
that's a lot of money.
Swift sells.
No kidding. And you're going to the show, aren't you?
I am going, yes.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
Awesome. Michelle Gomez, we appreciate your time and your Swiftie expertise. Have fun.
Thank you.
Major Canadian media organizations, including the CBC, are banding together to sue the company behind ChatGPT. They argue OpenAI is illegally using their content to train the chatbot. Cameron McIntosh examines what is at stake.
Can you tell me about the lawsuit?
ChatGPT can give you a tailored headline about the lawsuit against it.
Canadian media companies have filed a lawsuit against OpenAI.
Some of Canada's largest media companies allege it can only do that because its parent company, OpenAI, scrapes stories from the web, including Canadian ones, to train it.
In our view, the activities of OpenAI fall squarely within Canadian copyright law and squarely within breach of contract law.
Lawyer Sana Hawani is representing several of Canada's largest media companies, including CBC Radio Canada.
The Canadian media companies want OpenAI to make them whole. They want to be paid for the content that's been taken from them. And they also want OpenAI to stop scraping their content.
OpenAI denies the allegations. In a statement said, our models are trained on publicly available data, grounded in fair use and related international copyright principles that are fair for creators and support innovation. Other media, including the New York Times, have made similar allegations against OpenAI. That case is in U.S. court. It's not just news. Music publishers are making similar complaints against other AI companies, as musicians like Billie Eilish demand protections from AI trained to write and sound like popular artists. All of it posing big questions over how AI models are built and how far copyrights extend.
They have to prove that
their content was used without their permission.
This expert says Canada's generally strong copyright laws are untested here.
We need a clear message at this point whether this kind of practice is acceptable in Canada or not.
None of the allegations have been proven in court. The financial stakes here are big, with the media companies alleging billions in damages. OpenAI has yet to respond in court. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the kickoff to the holiday shopping season has arrived. Today is Black Friday, and you may have some feelings about it. Whether you're shopping or not, we asked folks in downtown Vancouver what they think of the sales. Have a listen.
I don't give much of a thought to Black Friday.
I take advantage of it to get some Christmas shopping done. Is it overwhelming? It can be overwhelming if you let it be.
As long as you have a budget, like, not beyond how much you want to spend.
Know what you need for Christmas, then it can be helpful. But if you don't know, then it feels like a missed opportunity.
What was the plan for today?
Christmas party dresses, sweatshirts,
yoga wear.
More of a do this shopping on December 23rd.
We have to do Christmas shopping anyway, so it's a good chance to get good deals on things that you're going to buy regardless.
Do some shopping and then you're finished, then you can go home and have glue wine and wrap presents. That's my Christmas.
Now, as the Canada Post workers' strike drags on and the holidays loom, Canadians are trying to figure out how best to get gifts to loved ones. As Nisha Patel shows us, there are other options, but they're more expensive and might not be fast.
'Tis the season for gift giving, and while shopping for presents can be stressful, this year so is mailing them.
Mailing gifts, mailing cards to my family. They're in Nova Scotia, so it makes it hard.
We'll find alternatives, but not every place you send something, you can actually use other alternatives.
With a national strike shutting down Canada Post services, many packages are stuck in limbo.
I don't know how to get them back.
A lot of delays, and we don't know the expected timelines to receive them.
I have a big family, and it's a little bit stressful.
Now Canadians are turning to other shipping companies, though their services often cost more and may not be available in rural areas.
If you're talking about multiple presents and each is shipped at a rate that's 50% or more greater than Canada Post rate, then it starts to sound like it's not worth it.
Small businesses, too, are scrambling, like this underwear company in Calgary.
It has really slowed down our abilities to ship to our customers effectively, and it's hurting our bottom line.
It can cost him as much as $12 more per package, and he's had to pass that on.
We've had to then reach out to customers and go, hey, we're sorry, we had one price, but that's not available anymore.
For those still checking off their lists, experts say digital gift cards are a no-fuss option, and shopping close to home can avoid some stress.
Go shop at a small local business. There's probably going to be a lot of them right in their neighborhood.
Nisha Patel reporting. A CBC Marketplace investigation, meanwhile, is revealing that when you tip, your money may not be going where you think. What used to be a way to say thanks for good service is now a rampant request. And as Christine Birak lays out, the workers are not always getting that cash.
Here's a tip. A recent survey found 77% of Canadians don't like these tip prompts.
Go ahead.
Since the pandemic, they're seemingly everywhere. But are the workers always getting that money?
Do you get these tips?
No. We visited 100 businesses and found around 3/4 of those places prompt for tips, sometimes making it hard to say no. At several sit-down restaurants, prompts start at 18%. Even after a windshield wiper change, we're asked for a tip.
A lot of people are taken aback by the whole tip concept.
Tips pop up online, self-serve kiosks, and at many fast food places.
Do you get this tip?
Most workers say they do, but not all.
If I leave a tip, do you get this tip? You don't get it. Oh, do you know who gets it?
Often called tip theft, it's illegal in several provinces, including Ontario. Still, workers there have filed nearly 800 tip theft claims this year alone. But in the territories and certain provinces, there are no tip protection laws. Advocates in Nova Scotia estimate some workers are losing thousands of dollars a year.
We put out a survey of workers last year, and about 73% wrote back and said that they had some experience with tip theft.
If you know that the server isn't getting it, then pushing back isn't a problem.
This food and tip researcher says he asks servers if they get their tips, insisting employees and customers need more transparency. And he points out many of those prompts also have us tipping on tax, and we're accepting it.
It's uncomfortable. And what do we do in uncomfortable situations? We try and get out of them as quickly as we can. So let's just push the button, give it back, and then get out of here.
Tipping isn't a social norm in other parts of the world. While living wages and tip theft laws could help workers, experts say until customers hit their tipping point, tip prompts will continue creeping higher and into more businesses. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
John Herdman has now resigned as coach of Toronto FC as the fallout from soccer's drone spying scandal continues. Herdman became head coach of the MLS club after leaving the men's national team a year ago. He's not given a reason for his departure. The Canadian women's team was caught using a drone to spy on opponents at the Summer Games in Paris. The team's head coach, Bev Priestman, lost her job earlier this month. She and 2 colleagues are now serving 1-year suspensions from FIFA. Soccer's governing body has also accused Herdman of starting the practice of spying when he was head coach of the women's team. He took on that job in 2011. Still to come, after more than 5 years of painstaking restoration, France's Notre-Dame Cathedral is open once again. We're going to take you inside after this. We're watching a breaking story tonight for you. The Prime Minister is in Florida right now, likely on a mission to try to convince Donald Trump to spare Canada from steep tariffs he has threatened to impose on all goods from this country. Trudeau disembarked from a flight that was in the air before news even broke of his surprise visit. He first stopped at his hotel, then left for a meeting with the president-elect. The Prime Minister's motorcade headed to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort and a dinner conversation that could be of vital importance. Trump's proposed 25% tariff could be devastating to Canada's economy. MPs in Britain have taken a major step to allow terminally ill adults in England and Wales the right to end their own lives. Under its terms, mentally competent adults who have 6 months or less to live could choose to end their lives with medical help. The bill now faces months of debate and possible changes. Crystal Gamansing has more from supporters and those concerned.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275. The ayes have it, and look!
This bill was considered once-in-a-generation legislation because of the monumental impact it could have on society. This issue has been contentious with a lot of emotion on both sides. And in fact, the Labour MP who put the bill forward made a point when the debate started in the House of Commons saying that this was a complex issue, but complex issues is exactly what MPs are supposed to deal with. There has been a lot of emotion inside the House of Commons, but also outside. Both sides were here today trying to make their voices heard. Those opposed to the legislation made a point of saying they saw it as a slippery slope. In fact, they are worried about it progressing to the sort of legislation there is in Canada. I heard from a number of individuals, one of them, Anna Laundrie. She talked about the fact that she's disabled, and until that disabled people have access to what they need, they could fear being a burden and coerced into using this legislation down the line.
In this country, we don't have the support as disabled people to live. It can take people 2 years to get a wheelchair. So when you're looking at offering them the chance to die within 2 weeks, that is just coercive control. And this bill, like many others in countries that have been passed, is likely to be expanded. And I think we did see public opinion in the last week or two really turn in favor of us. I wonder if we were to have this vote next week, whether the result would have been different. But we're going to keep fighting. We've got several more rounds of review, and we'll be back to convince the rather small margin of MPs to switch their vote.
Another individual, 28-year-old Rensa Gaunt, talked about the Canadian system, fearing that eventually it will move towards that system. Right now, here in the UK, as the legislation is written, it will only be for adults in England and Wales who are over the age of 18 and terminally ill. But there is a lot of fear around what will come in a year, in a month, in 6 years when it comes to this legislation. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Scotland, meanwhile, is considering a change to its own law to allow assisted dying. There is no such initiative in Northern Ireland. The historic Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris reopens next week, 5 years after it was gutted by a massive fire. Today, it welcomed the people who restored it. The CBC's Heather Gillis reports.
An enduring symbol of Paris, Notre-Dame, now restored. French President Emmanuel Macron got a glimpse of the iconic Gothic cathedral, reconstructed.
Le choc de la réouverture.
Saying he believes the shock of Notre Dame reopening will be as strong as the shock of the fire and inspire hope. Reborn from the ashes of that devastating fire in 2019, which took just hours to destroy key parts of the 800-year-old church, one of the most visited monuments in Paris. The spire smashing through timbers spanning its roof, shattering French hearts and shocking the world. 5.5 years later, it's reopening, rebuilt using medieval methods, wood from centuries-old oak, stained glass, buttresses and gargoyles restored too, costing more than $1 billion Canadian. Macron thanked about 1,000 craftsmen and women for their meticulous work, calling it the project of a century. We owe this metamorphosis to you, he said, transforming coal into art, calling the fire a national wound. These restoration workers, its remedy. Parisians can't wait to see inside, including this Notre-Dame superfan. Forged after the fire, the craftspeople who restored the cathedral formed a choir. Now they're practicing for a performance following the reopening. It allows them to find closure, says this engineer, after a strenuous job, one he hopes is ending on a good note. Notre Dame's opening ceremony will happen next weekend, followed by days of special masses to celebrate. It will reopen to the public on December 8th. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Toronto.
In the Middle East, Syrian insurgents have entered Aleppo, that country's second largest city. This comes 2 days after they launched their biggest offensive against Bashar al-Assad's government since 2016. Syrian rebels drove military vehicles in and around Aleppo today amid tense fighting with government troops. Those troops say they have now regained ground in several towns and in 2 provinces. Syrian and Russian planes reportedly carried out more than 20 airstrikes in and around Aleppo today. Observers believe insurgents launched this attack this week because Iran-backed groups loyal to al-Assad have been preoccupied with fighting in Lebanon and Gaza. More than 500,000 people have been killed in the civil war that broke out when the Syrian government cracked down on pro-democracy protests in 2011. Assad has kept a fragile grip on power since then, with support from Russia and Iran. Here is Karis Hogg, who's going to give us an update on what we get for this weekend's weather and beyond.
Yes, and pretty wintry is the name of the game, Dan.
Sticking to trend.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a trend. It's a thing that's happening right now. It's called winter.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the South Coast, not so much, but for other parts of the province, we're seeing a series of low-pressure systems that are going to bring heavy snow to the North Rockies and the Caribou region, and that's going to be sort of late this evening and through Sunday. Now, you can see here at the precipitation forecast, the green blob is the rain, and that's really going to hit sort of the central coast, and then the blue-white is the snow, and that's more the central interior. And because of all of this precipitation, we do have some weather watches and warnings to tell you about. For the central coast in Bella Coola and Bella Bella in particular, there's a rainfall warning. Lots of rain expected there tonight and into tomorrow. And then on the north coast, Terrace, Kitimat, and Prince Rupert, there's a winter storm watch. So be aware that that could be heavy winds, heavy snow, freezing rain, that type of thing. And then this sort of light turquoise section here in the north central area of the province, heavy snow there. So that includes Williams Lake and Prince George. There's a snowfall warning for Highway 97, Pine Pass, as well as the Yellowhead Highway near the Alberta border. Anywhere from 10 to 25 centimeters could fall on those stretches of highway. So looking at the forecast for tonight, these lows through the central part of the province and up north will be actually cooler than this because of wind chill. Looking at 5 degrees cooler for Kamloops, Williams Lake, Prince George, and Terrace. 5 degrees cooler than you see here. Fort St. John with wind chill could be minus 32. Dease Lake minus 39 with wind chill overnight tonight. Yikes. And then tomorrow, a pretty chilly day, maybe a little bit of wet snow in Whistler tomorrow. And looking at the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver, a rainy one tomorrow, not nearly as dramatic as other parts of the province. Just some showers tomorrow. And then look at these 3 sun emojis. Look at them in a row.
In a row?
In a row.
Sandwiched in between. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karis. A holiday tradition that inspires grumbles of bah humbug. Tangled lights left knotted after someone, probably you, Gary, didn't put them away properly last year. But what if there was a way to easily untangle things? We'll show you how. Next.
Let's spread some joy.
CBC is asking you to make the season kind with us on December 6th.
Kick off the holiday season with a day of festive programming in support of local food banks across BC.
This year, we're inviting you to come down to the CBC Plaza as we spread some joy with an afternoon outdoor broadcast filled with live music, activities, and more. Make the season kind. December 6th.
Well, 'tis the season to bring out the bundled up Christmas lights and then grumble and possibly swear as you try and untangle them.
Now, before you give up, though, our Lisa Christensen found out there's actually an easy way out. She met up with a math professor to see how it's done.
Well, hello.
Hi there.
Help me, Liam Watson. You're my only hope.
What are we looking at here?
So I have this problem, and I know that you teach something called knot theory.
Yeah, that's right. So my name's Liam Watson. I'm a professor of mathematics at UBC, and right now I am teaching a third-year course called Introduction to Knot Theory.
And is this anything like what you teach?
This is more complicated.
If I hear knot theory, this is what I imagine.
It might be. We don't know yet because we haven't looked more closely at this, but let's think about what a knot is in general. The knot in math is going to be some loop of string, which I'll tie together in some complicated way, and the ends get joined together. I'm pretty sure that the ends of these are not connected to one another. So even though we just learned that there's this whole discipline called knot theory and it's based on having the ends tied up, if I'm allowed undo the ends, then we at least have some hope. There must be a way to undo it because I've broken the knottedness.
Can we imagine this as an equation?
So, no. The problem is we know theoretically that if I pull these straight, then the mess should be obvious, and then I should be able to simplify that mess by pulling things back through. But the act of pulling it straight makes this mess tighter and tighter and harder to see what's going on, and then that's when the geometry at play starts to really conspire against us.
What if we plugged one of them in?
Oh, that's a great idea.
And you can see the difference between the two lights, right?
Yeah, actually, now you're thinking like a mathematician. You're doing better than I am.
I'm thinking like a math. No one has ever said that to me, I'll tell you that.
It gets a lot better if we just get this through there, and there's a whole bunch of the interaction between that. You see, so sometimes these moments happen where you're like, oh wait, now I believe that this will get simpler. We can ignore this mess for a while, and that's a smaller mess than we started with.
I see.
That's my point. We sort of had a divide and conquer approach here. I just need just the right amount of encouragement to get these stars out of the way, and that will happen. Knots are really a baby case of an important principle of how it is that an object can live in three-dimensional space, or how is it that a two-dimensional object can live in four-dimensional space, and these kinds of questions have driven a lot of mathematics. Okay, great. So there we go. Two distinct components, thanks to your ingenious invariant called plug one of them in.
This is going to be easy now.
Oh,
now I've got this.
It's because attitude is everything. You just have to, you see, it's going to be easy. It's as hard as it was before.
No, now it's...
Attitude is everything.
Oh, yeah.
She's so thrilled. I love that.
She's amazing. Well, because they've probably been tangling like that for 5 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, I heard her earlier this week talk about how she unboxed the decorations and found this ball. I feel like if you just sort of pull at it, it might be a way. But also, I was also thinking, what if you didn't bother untangling it, you just plugged it in and like plopped it somewhere?
Like a light nest.
Exactly. Like, so on a bush outside of your home, you just have this like ball.
Love it.
Yeah,
that's
that could be an option.
I think we're being told. I think we got to go.
We got to go. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and at cbc.ca/BC.
Good night.